All right, well today I'm going to be trying out a little experiment to see if it works. I've seen some guys use wet blasting with just a pressure washer and some media that gets drawn in, and I want to give that a whirl. Rather than going out of a bucket, I'm going to actually try to take it out of that camel pack. I stuck a bag, trimmed a bag, stuck it down in there, and I put some aluminum oxide grit in there from a blaster, and I want to see if it'll draw it out using the little sucker wand, whatever you're going to call it, that goes down in there, the feeder. And I know the one big thing everybody talks about is when you have your pressure washer, you got to keep the input for the media vertical, otherwise water can go back up in there and then the stuff doesn't flow at all and you're pretty well screwed. So you gotta wait for it all to dry out and everything like that. So I'm gonna give it a whirl, see what happens. Just try to strip some of this undercoating off the inside of the aprons, and I'm trying to salvage the aprons because the ones that I bought suck. So I just want to see if it'll work. If it'll strip it, that's great. My other option was dry ice, trying to put that on there and just kind of crack some of it off, but I'm a little hesitant to beat the snot out of them with a hammer, because since it is in the engine bay, you will see it, so I don't want to put a bunch of dings in there. I mean, obviously they look like crap now, but I do plan on cleaning them up and seeing what I can get out of them. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's not the end of the world, but I figured I'd just give it a shot and see what happens. All right, so here's the basic setup. Got the wand on the end there. The powder feeds through here and ends up getting introduced into the stream. And then of course it goes back to the backpack, goes in there, and then hopefully it's pulling it out of the bottom. So we'll see. So I guess the answer is yes, it does strip it off. I mean, it cleans it up, down to bare metal, takes off the rust, it looks like as well. But it does look like it consumes a ton of media. So it won't surprise me if I'm out of media in 5 minutes or something. So just food for thought. Now I could get some play sand and see what it does, just to see if it strips at the same rate or what. But this kind of lets me know that although this is nice and mobile, it's, I'm not going to have the quantity I need to do any large section. So that's that kind of sucks, but it'll do what I need it to do. It's just probably going to be a matter of running out of media and having to get something else. Yeah, you can get quite a bath if you dig it down in the dirt. That's lovely. But yeah, it looks like it cuts okay. It's just slow. So I am probably gonna give the dry ice a shot and see what it does. All right, so I just want to give a close-up view of the parts, of what it did or what it didn't do in most of the case. You can see that it did remove some rust, right in that area. It took rust off. I can't say it didn't, but it's just really slow, the removal process. It's not a strong enough unit, I don't think. I mean, that pressure washer is good for concrete and stuff like that, but something that's rubberized probably needs either a smaller nozzle or just a huge increase in flow to really have a lot more media chewing away at the undercoating and rust and stuff. So but I mean, it does work. I'll give it that, but you really would be stuck using it on the smallest of parts. Otherwise you're going to be standing out here all day long and have to have a 5-gallon buckets absolutely full of sand to try to cut it. I was just thinking the aluminum oxide would probably cut better than play sand, but I mean, I could be wrong. It's a pretty fine grit, so maybe it's not as good, or maybe it's just not being propelled at a rate that the speed that actually does maximum cutting. So so I don't know, we'll see, but I'm probably going to give it a shot with the dry ice. Try to get some of that. I don't know if I'll do it today or not, but and then I'll video some of that just to kind of show the comparison. and see how that goes. I really just want to avoid denting the panels. I mean, I know they look like crap anyway, but I'm trying to see if I can at least salvage it a little bit. I mean, some of this stuff I could throw it in some, you know, evapor rust or whatever, and eat off some of that rust to take it down, or, you know, do some acid or something on it. But I just don't like the aftermarket ones at all. They're just really a terrible cut, or, you know, stamping's just terrible. So I'm just trying to salvage what I can, but, you know, we'll see. If I can't salvage it, I can't salvage it. But I just know that the aftermarket ones don't mimic the firewall shape very well at all, and that's really going to be a huge challenge for foremen. So anyway, that's where it is for now. And you know, this was worth a shot, and I figured I'd share it just so somebody either doesn't waste their time or decides they really want to go through the pain and suffering, they can. Or maybe they have a better technique. You know, definitely put comments below if you have something that has worked better for you. All right, thanks. Today I'm going to be trying to use dry ice to remove some of the undercoating inside the aprons here for the front of the car. Yesterday I tried to do some blasting with a pressure washer with some media in it, and it did remove some. You can see it over there. Another one's kind of a little shiny-ish, or a little gray color over the top of that. This panel over here, you see right in here, was actually, it cleaned up some of it, but again, just incredibly slow process. So today I'm going to be trying the dry ice and seeing how that works. I have to let it sit there till it gets cold, hardens up, and then I'm just going to whack it with the hammer a little bit and see if I can get that stuff to pop off. If you notice, when I'm banging this around trying to break it up, the bag is kind of inflating. I think it's probably just a reaction when more of the outside of it is exposed to air, it's starting to off-gas, I say off-gas, but basically melt, turn back to carbon dioxide, whatever you want to term it. So that's why the bag keeps kind of blowing up. There are holes in the bag, so it leaks back down, but just kind of interesting. Now, I did hear a guy online said he was using, he would take this, break it up, and then mix in alcohol, like rubbing alcohol, and it makes like a slurry. And apparently that will drop the temperature down faster, mainly because, you know, with a liquid you're getting full contact, whereas this way you're probably not getting it unless you got the little powdery areas. So I guess we'll see how this goes. Yeah, I mean, the bottom of the panel is getting pretty cold, so it's definitely having an impact. But rumor is you leave it on there for a couple minutes or a minute or so, and then it starts getting a little more brittle. One thing with this, obviously, I can't just beat on this in the air. It's going to, you know, bounce all over the place. So I have to get some. I'm going to take a board or something, stick it under here, just so it doesn't completely just bounce and spit the stuff back up in the air. Total mess here. Now that seems to work a little bit better. So, I mean, beating on it, yeah, sure, but it does look like if you start lifting it, it cracks pretty quickly. But I will say that's a difference, because if I come over here to this, while I get some dry stuff, I do start getting a little bit of smearing at the same time, but not as bad on that one as I thought it was going to be. I will say that's an improvement. The fact I can just slide this across there and not it pops off. I can't do that over here. I get the top layer of it, the real lumpy stuff, but I don't get really through it. Yeah, it's definitely easier to remove. There we go. A piece of it popped off there. Yeah, so that's actually not bad. Yeah, I mean, pieces coming off like that, that's pretty good. No, it's not. I mean, it's not a miracle, obviously. It's not going to just go on there and suddenly start falling off, but it does seem like it's fairly effective. And I think as you get closer to the areas where you didn't have it, like that heat transfer is not, or sorry, that cold transfer is not quite as good. So you can tell where it's not going to take it off so well. Yeah, I mean, I think it works. And I mean, I made more progress there than I did over there for sure. But yeah, it's still a slow process. I don't think you're ever going to really get away from the amount of time it's going to take to actually strip a panel or something. You know, if you were doing a floor and a rotisserie, it'd probably be a long day. That was nice there. So I guess the key is time. The more time you have for it to get nice and cold and brittle, the better off you are, because that kind of popped off that time. Kind of do a little zoom in here so you can see what it has removed. So if you pull off some of this, you're down to some of the original paint color under here. And it does seem like it's effective, but it's just it's going to be work no matter how you do it, I guess. I took all that off in there as well. I don't think I got it over here, so you should see the dividing line there of undercoating versus no undercoating. Right there, where on the left side of that's undercoating. Yeah, so you can see it does come off, but it's still, still got some work involved with it, obviously. But I mean, I think I'd honestly take this over doing the heat method, just because it gets so hot and smelly and sticky and just kind of a mess. And you still got to clean it off with some kind of solvent when you're done, because you don't get it all off anyway. This is probably a little less unhealthy, if there's such a thing. So. All right, well, I'm gonna keep doing this for a little bit and then just kind of do a after removal, update on the back end of this. Okay, so I broke out the Dremel oscillating tool, and just for comparison's sake, I ran it on here. I took just a regular, it's a scraper blade. This one's kind of dull, so it's kind of probably impeding me a little bit, but I took the scraper blade and tried to do an area in here, and it didn't really do much until I turned it sideways, at which point the oscillation, which goes side to side, kind of digs away at it a little bit. But as you can see, it's only digging down into the undercoating. It's not going through it to the bottom side. I mean, sure, if you stayed there long enough, maybe, but I think the problem is, because this is still room temp, it's just smearing it. So it's not really making much progress. So I'm going to be trying it over here on this side to see how that goes. And
I'll of course mute the video during this portion because it is absurdly loud. You know, the oscillating tool by itself is noisy, but you add in banging sheet metal, it gets really, really loud. So just going to give this a whirl though and see how it goes. I definitely think it's probably less work than trying to do this because you don't have to use as much effort to do it. You know, the tool does some of it. The only thing I will say is, I mean, granted my scraper blade kind of sucks, so you probably would do better with a new one that maybe has a different geometry, or you know, there might be something that you know would work a little bit better, or maybe a carbide one. I don't know. It might score the panel, but it does seem to take it off without too much trouble. But I really have to use the side of the blade. I have to, which is where the oscillation is whacking against the side of it, so it's chipping it instead of, you know, the blade going back and forth and actually slicing underneath it. That doesn't really seem to work. So again, the needle scaler may work, or it may just beat it down on there and not actually take it off. But if it's cold enough, it should crack and come off. It's kind of the thought, at least. All right, so about 2 hours later, an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of scraping and making noise. I have all 4 of them stripped. They still need to be hit with a wire wheel or a scrubby pad on a sander or something like that to take off the residue and the remaining little bit of stuff. So in recap, then this one here on the left is my original one that I did with the scraper with the dry ice. That one I did next with the oscillating tool with the dry ice. As you can see, it takes off paint and everything, obviously. It's not bad. I think if you had a good blade on it, the right kind of scraper blade, not something super sharp cornered, otherwise you're going to gouging into your panel quite a bit like I did down here. But I think that would work pretty well. And then this guy I did with the oscillating tool without ice, just to see if it would get some of that off there, and it did. A lot of it came off. Initially I was having problems with it smearing, but once you get under it, it seems to come up. You know, I say okay, but not terrible. There is a difference between cold and you know, and not cold when it comes to you know, the room temperature versus the you know, sort of frozen one. I think that one up there, it did come off easier. Obviously, it came off a little cleaner, but you can tell a little bit of difference there just in the color. And then that one over there, I just did with the scraper with the dry ice, just because my hands were not vibrating from the tool, and I was kind of getting tired of it. So it came off okay, but as you can see, it left a lot more of the paint. That's, for some reason, there was black paint on that one instead of you know, red like this. So, but yeah, it didn't take all the paint off, obviously, just because you're only doing it by hand with the ice or with the dry ice. Sorry. And so, but anyway, I guess in review, I would say the spray method outside is it's not bad for small areas and vertical surfaces. If you had to do a horizontal surface, I mean, yeah, sure, I guess you could do it as long as it's small parts and the parts aren't, you know, are kept some way that they're not going to get blown away while you're trying to do it. But the ice can't be done vertically, obviously, so you'd have to be on a rotisserie or have the panels off like this, or pour the ice in the floor of your car to try to, you know, get it cold from the inside and then knock the outside stuff off. But I think effectiveness-wise, the spray is just, it's very slow. So unless you've got a really big industrial unit, I think you're going to be struggling with that one, even with the grit in there. Now, maybe the play sand cuts better than the aluminum oxide, but I don't know if that's the case or not. I imagine the play sand's bigger in diameter than the aluminum oxide. So maybe it does more, but I just didn't have any at the time, so I didn't get to try that. But I do think, you know, I think the ice is not bad. I don't think it's necessary if it's cool out. If it's 90 degrees outside, you're definitely going to need the dry ice. Otherwise, the stuff's going to smear everywhere. But if it's cool or if it's cold out, then I think you can get away with the scraper. You can do the scraper if it's dry enough, or if it's old enough. Otherwise, the oscillating tool is probably the only really way to get a lot of it off a lot faster. But again, it's ridiculously noisy and not the most fun thing to use. So, but anyway, around it, I mean, it's a crappy job regardless. Undercoating sucks to take off, and takes a lot of time, and there's really probably no substitution for just the labor hours to do it. So anyway, I just figured I wanted to give a quick update on that, and my brief thoughts on it, and hopefully it helps somebody out. Well, thanks for watching.